Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. I'm Melissa and this is Melissa Knits for Fun. I've had a few people come to me here recently asking me about test knitting and asking how do I decide what I want to test knit, where do I go to try to find test knit opportunities, what is the test knitting experience like, and should they test knit or not? Well, I'm going to address some of these things today. I'm going to talk all about test knitting because I do actually test knit quite a lot. I got involved last year. I did two, I think it was last year, that were for Valentinaknits. Yep. And then at this point, I am finishing up my 12th test knit for the year, and I have one more, which is a headband on deck to finish by the end of the year. What I'm wearing today is one of the ones that I have done as a test knit. This is the Ophelia tee, and I test knit this earlier in the year, and it is by far one of my favorite t-shirts to wear. I love this thing, and I get compliments on it every time I wear it. It's such a wonderful design. So I'm going to start out with, how did I get involved in test knitting? Well, let me tell you, YouTube, podcast, they are the reason. A lot of podcasters do test knitting. And so I got intrigued and was like, ooh, I could do that. And that'd be a lot of fun. I could go and I could meet new people. I could test. I could, get the item first or the pattern first because I have a lot of FOMO and man, I do like being first. And so if I'm able to get a pattern before anybody else and knit that pattern, then yay. And I can also test knit it and see if there are any mistakes and help knitters down the road to keep from finding those mistakes after they've already paid for a pattern. All right, check. Yay! I want to get this thing going. How do I get started? Well, I happened to see a test knit out there, a call from Valentinaknits. So I applied, I got picked. It was a pleasant experience. I really enjoyed myself, so I applied again when she had another one. Which leads me to, where do I find test knits? How do I find these opportunities? If you have Instagram, find designers that you like and follow them. A lot of designers put their test knit calls on Instagram. Even if that's not where you're going to apply, they'll have a link in their bio. It may link to a Ravelry page where they have a group there where you go put in your information and then they pick. It may be a form that you fill out that gets sent to them and then you pick. There's multiple ways, but watch Instagram. Check out Facebook, because Facebook, there is a group for designers that are looking for test knitters. And so it's a group of designers and test knitters that are all in there. Test calls go out and people can knit them or not. I've noticed this tends to be for, more smaller designers are in there that maybe have trouble competing with the larger designers on getting test knitters. It's a great opportunity. I haven't knit anything out of there yet. There just hasn't been a call for a sweater that I've been in love with. And then I also use Yarn Pond. It is yarnpond.com, and you can sign up there. It's completely free for the test knitters. You sign up there and you can select to get emails. I'm sure that you can say, no, don't email me. I wouldn't know because I didn't choose that, but I'm sure you can, and you can go check it. But you can also get emails, and they will email you for new test knits. And there's test calls for both crocheters and knitters as well. I get both. I don't know why. I've got to go check that because I don't do any crocheting anymore. So I really don't care about those, except for my best friend is a crocheter. And so sometimes I'll send her some. But I go to Yarn Pond. That's where I find several of them. I seem to have more success getting accepted for test knits over at Yarn Pond because I don't think that that's as well known as like Instagram. But I am noticing that the spots are filling up faster on Yarn Pond. So I don't know if that's because I've seen some designers that their link points to Yarn Pond on Instagram. I don't know if it's because of that or if word's just getting out. Either way, doesn't matter. I don't get every test knit anyway. You're not going to get every test knit you apply for, and don't get upset if you don't. Another way to get test knits is to sign up for designers' newsletters. Some of them they do just in their normal newsletter. Creabea puts out a normal newsletter, and then she also will put her test knit calls in there. But other designers, I think it's Adorable Knits, I think Kadri has one, and several other designers, they have a test knit specific sign up so that you can go into their testing pool and they'll send emails when they're looking for test knitters. Now, I have criteria on whether or not I'm going to test knit something. One of the ladies at the yarn shop said to me one day, she's like, I don't understand why you enjoy test knitting so much, because I want to be able to choose what I knit and not have someone tell me what to test knit. Well, it's not like that because I signed up for a test group or whatever that somebody's telling me, hey, this is what you're going to test knit this time. No, I'm not an employee. If I were a sample knitter for, say, Rowan, and they sent me something and said, here's the yarn and here's the pattern, go knit it. Okay, yes, that's a sample knitter. I'm not keeping my finished project. When I'm a test knitter, I am keeping my finished project. So nobody's telling me what to knit. I get to choose. So how I choose is, number one, do I like the design? Do I want to knit it? Do I want to wear it? Check. Then I look at, what is the deadline? Is the deadline reasonable? And everybody is going to have a different definition of reasonable. Mine is, I can usually do them if it's a month away, because I can get a sweater done usually in a couple of weeks. But is the deadline reasonable? Right now, I'm not doing anything that's not at least the end of the year or into January, because I have other things for gift knits that are going on, and I just can't commit to getting something done during this time frame. So, is the deadline reasonable? Check. My self-imposed rule is, do I have the yarn in my stash? As you can see, I have a big stash, and this is just a little bit of it. So do I have the deadline in my stash? So this is a good way to get rid of stash yarn. Check. And then finally, have I ever test knitted for you before? And did I have a good experience? If I have test knitted for you before and I had a good experience, or I've never test knitted for you before, check. If I've had an experience with you and I didn't like it, I will never test knit for you again. So if you meet my criteria, and this is just how I pick, right? Develop your own. What's important to you? If I make it through that process, then I go and apply. And here's where I apply. Sometimes I apply for 10 or 12 test knits, and I get picked for one. Now, there have been other times where I've applied for 3 or 4 thinking I would only get one, and I've gotten 3 of them. And they all had deadlines fairly close together. That kind of, I'm like, whoa, what did I do? But I buckle down and I get it done, because to me it's a commitment and you need to honor your commitments. You could absolutely reach out to a designer and say, hey, I'm really incredibly sorry, but due to the fact that I got all of these, I'm going to have to pull out. I would say in that case, don't download that pattern. I mean, just don't. Go buy that pattern later if you want to. All right, so I got picked. Now what's the process? Well, typically designers will set up a chat. I've had them on Instagram. I've had them on Discord. I've had them on Slack. I've had them on WhatsApp. I've never had one that was just in email. I've also had them in a Ravelry group. I know there are designers that just do email. I probably would not test knit for a designer that just does the email. I like the social aspect of it. I've also done them where the chat is within Yarn Pond. The ones run on Yarn Pond come with an automatic chat function. And I like the social aspect of it. I also like being able to give real-time information and see it come back, and not having to try to chase it down in an email, because I get a lot of emails. So that's just, again, my personal criteria. I won't test knit for you if it's all through email. But you have these chats, and you can give feedback to the designer. Now, designers who run really good test knits, when you give them information back that, hey, there may be something wrong in this pattern, they say, okay, great, I'm going to check my math, or I'm going to have my tech editor look at this because we didn't see that. You're the first one that's bringing this up, whatever. Sometimes they get back to you and they're like, I really think it's something that you did wrong because we went and looked at this and this and this. Can you look at this? I've had it where I gave some feedback and was like, hey, this happened. And then realized when they went and checked everything and came back to me and said, hey, what about this? I had actually done something wrong. And it wasn't a pattern problem. It was a me problem. But I've also had times where I was right, and oh, yes, there is something wrong with the math in this for this size. And so then the designer goes and corrects that. It gets put into the finished item, into the finished pattern, and all is good. Some of the feedback that I've given as well is just about consistency. I try to look at it through a beginner's eyes. It's hard to do because I am an experienced knitter. I knit a lot of garments, so sometimes I'll just correct something in my mind and not even realize I've done it, which is why a lot of designers, and especially good designers that run really good test knits, will have a mix, beginner, intermediate, advanced, so that they get all levels looking at this from their own perspective to make sure that the pattern is appropriate for their audience. But I do try to look at some things through beginner's eyes. And some feedback I gave recently was, hey, everywhere else you have said PMA for place marker A, or PMB for place marker B. In this specific place, you say place marker A. Well, you need to be consistent. Either change everything else to place marker A or change this to PMA. And she came back and said, yes, thank you very much for pointing that out. I will get that changed to PMA for consistency's sake. So some of the feedback's just really easy, really simple like that, right? It's just for readability and stuff. Some of it is math stuff. So the test process, you go along. Some designers will say, hey, this is, kind of where you need to be. Here's some milestones to make sure that you're on track. And some don't. They just say, hey, here's when I need it, and it's up to you to get it done. I've had a designer say, well, I appreciate that you can just go through and knit it and then give me all the feedback at the end. I would prefer if you gave me feedback as you go along. If something is great or something is not great, there's a problem, please bring it up so that I can go and start doing that, so I don't have to try to fix everything at the end and try to figure out if there was a math mistake or if it was a mistake with the knitter. So try to get feedback as you go along. Most designers do appreciate that. And like I said, the test knitting process for me has been really easy. You just chat. It's kind of like a knit along, but with you giving like feedback to the designer versus just y'all talking about it and helping each other out. You do help each other out as well in test knit. And a lot of times designers will be part of the test knit. Sometimes they're not. Sophie from Knit Pro Girl, she wasn't super involved in the chat until there was a problem that everybody was talking about, this specific problem. And then she joined the chat and said, hey, let's work through this. Let me figure out what's going on. She monitors them, and then she'll step in if she needs to. If you really need her, you can tag her or you could email her, right? You can get a hold of her, is my point. All right. And then finally, what do I get out of it? What's in it for me, right? With them, as we say where I work. Well, what's in it for me is that I get to knit this pattern that I was going to knit anyway. And I don't have to buy the pattern, so I save a little money. Do I get the yarn? No, I've not test knit for anybody that's had a yarn sponsor yet. If I did, then yay, I would also get free yarn to do it, and it wouldn't cost me anything to knit this other than some time. Woo! I'm still waiting on that. One of these days, maybe I'll get picked for one that has some yarn sponsor. But if I don't, I don't, right? If I'm gonna knit this pattern anyway, I'm going to supply my own yarn. So I get a free pattern. A lot of designers will give you then, in addition to the finished pattern of what you just test knit, they'll give you another pattern of your choice for free out of their library. Now, brand new designers can't do this. If they don't have any other design, they can't give you a free pattern. So you've got to be okay with that. And then some of them will give you multiple free patterns. Sophie from the Knit Pearl Girl has been the most generous by far. She started out with, you get 3 for doing this. And then she gave us extra codes because we had run into that problem in the test knit. She did not have to do that. That was very generous on her part. Now, I do have a rule about this. What do you get? If you are going to just give me the pattern that I knitted for free, I'm okay with that. If you're going to give me an extra free pattern, I'm okay with that. But I will not knit for you if you tell me that my reward is going to be that I'm going to get a discount on one of your other patterns. I'm not doing that. Most designers put discounts on their patterns every year anyway. At least once a year they'll do like an anniversary or a birthday or something like that. If all you're doing is giving me a discount, I'm not test knitting for you. But that's my own personal deciding factor, right? So there's nothing wrong with doing that. I just won't do it because I think that you can afford to give me something for free if you can afford to give it to me at a 50% discount or whatever. And I just gave you my time for free. So for me, this is a mutually beneficial kind of symbiotic relationship here in that, you know, the designer gets, I don't like calling it free labor, but essentially that's what it is. They get someone to test knit their pattern, to vet it, to make sure that there's no obvious problems in it, to make sure that it works up like you expect it to work up, and that it looks like what you expect it to look like at the end. And then as a test knitter, I get that pattern for free. If the yarn's sponsored, I get that yarn for free. And I might get an additional pattern or two for free as well for my time. I appreciate that. To me, it's worth it. Might not be for you. So you have to decide whether you want to test knit or not, and that's a very personal decision. I hope that this video has helped you to decide whether or not you would want to enter the test knitting realm. What I would say is try once, keep applying for a designer that you really love, and try to test knit once and then see how it goes and make your choice from there if you want to be a test knitter or if you are a one and done and that was enough. And as always, have a great week, and I'll see you in a couple of days for my regular podcast episode. Thank you.